Nvidia is expected to report earnings in about 24 hours, depending on when you're watching this video. And on today's episode, I want to look at two main things. The first thing is take a closer look at what I believe were some of the top events that happened after their last earnings call, which was in August 29th. Now, the second thing I want to do is take a closer look at what earnings are expected to be, what are analysts expecting, what is Nvidia expecting, and just my overall thoughts on the stock.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
You can see the AI market is pretty much booming right now. I know Microsoft is kind of having a Microsoft Ignite event, and that's kind of causing a lot of bullish sentiment towards the stock. Then obviously we do have a lot of things happening around Nvidia. And if there's anything major that's really causing this 4% up, we'll talk about that in tonight's video. But right now, I really just want to focus on the earnings side. So I did create a tweet, or X, whatever you call it nowadays. And if you don't follow me, make sure to follow me now. So here are my top 8 biggest events since last Nvidia earnings. And if you have any, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I definitely might have missed some because this AI market is evolving at such a rapid pace that I could have missed anything that was major. But for me, number one was OpenAI and their O1 preview, aka Strawberry. In my opinion, OpenAI's O1 preview is a game changer for Nvidia, especially as before we were really kind of just obviously bullish in inference, but we were bullish in the training compute growth that was growing almost at some exponential levels. Now, for those that don't know, OpenAI's O1 model is one that can think, and pretty much thinking is doing a lot of inference. So now with OpenAI's O1 preview, the inference computation scaling law is also increasing at exponential levels. And this is just the first model that does this. It thinks for a few seconds, but there's going to be models in the future that are going to think for minutes, that are going to think for hours, for days, for months to kind of solve the craziest problems of humankind. So I think O1 preview was the inception point of inference training, which is very important because Nvidia is, as we're going to look at some of the other events, the best player in forms of benchmarks for inferencing solutions. Now, the second thing is we just had earnings from big tech players, and all major cloud service providers are saying that they're increasing their capex due to overall AI demand and AI infrastructure solution. So big bullish case there. Next, TSMC also reported earnings at the beginning of the earnings season, and they continue to mention that they are supply constraint on CoWoS or advanced packaging. So this is very important because it kind of showcases that Nvidia is going to be supply constraint for a long time. So there's way more demand than there is for their products, which kind of allows us to see a very long view of how far Nvidia can sell these AI chips. Number 4 was also pretty important. AMD recently had their AI event on October 10th, and they increased the total addressable market to $500 billion in 2028, up from $400 billion in 2027. So that's up about $100 billion in just 1 year. I think that's insane. And right now, Nvidia obviously takes most of this market share. So we can expect that most of that revenue growth between 2077 and 2028 should go to Nvidia. Now, number 5 was Nvidia destroys ML benchmarks for AI inference and training, and no competition was close. For those that are not familiar, there are kind of industry benchmarks out there that if you are a chip player, you can kind of submit your system with your chip, and we will be able to see how they perform. The great thing about these benchmarks is they are an industry benchmark, so they're doing what kind of some of the major workloads are out there in the world. The great thing is this is kind of like an independent thing. These benchmarks are like competition. We get to really see who is the best of the best and who's kind of just talking a lot of talk. So there's a benchmark for both inference and for training. The training just happened about a week ago, and we did a video here. Inference happened a few months ago, and for both scenarios, Nvidia is the best player when it comes to training and inferencing in forms of performance. So right off the bat, we can see that Nvidia doesn't just say that they are the best AI chip. they also have the benchmarks to prove it. Number 6 is sovereign AI, which has become a massive push towards Nvidia's revenue growth. In the most recent conference, right, we had Japan do a conference, an AI summit with Nvidia, and SoftBank, a big Japanese company, is partnering up with Nvidia and purchasing a lot of AI chips to bring AI infrastructure solutions to Japan and to kind of that sovereign AI is becoming a strong revenue growth. So we've also seen this in India a few months ago. Number 7, I want to say, are nuclear reactor deals that have come out from big players. I mean, here we can see just on October alone, we have Google blog mentions that they have new nuclear clean energy agreement with Kairos Power, and Amazon on October 16th also mentioned that they have signed agreements for innovative nuclear energy solution. Now, this is kind of showcasing that, hey, look, these data center companies are thinking multiple years ahead because nuclear power and these kind of small nuclear reactors are still going to take some time to really be produced and built and designed. But it just showcases that, hey, look, the top cloud service providers believe that demand for chips is going to continue. They need to continue to build massive data centers. So Nvidia is one to expect to win a lot here. Number 8, unfortunately, we did hear a lot of nonsense drama about Nvidia's relations with TSMC and some recent overheating issues. So for those that have not been following, I talked about this a few episodes ago, how there are some overheating issues on the server side. If you really just watched that video and didn't just look at the thumbnail, you would have known that in that video, I mentioned I personally was not afraid of these reports if they were true, but I didn't think they were true as well. Now, the second thing is a few months ago, we saw that Nvidia kind of had some issues with the masking of their Blackwell chip, and a lot of people were making it seem like they had tensions with TSMC. Now, I want to say both those things kind of created negative sentiments towards the stock or kind of maybe added to a bearish thesis, but I want to say both of those are nonsense and nothing burgers, in my opinion. Now, number 9 was one that I almost forgot, but we also had big players like Microsoft, like Google, and I believe Amazon started to receive their initial samples of Blackwell GP200. So I don't believe we're going to get much Blackwell revenue here in quarter 3, but I do believe there's going to be some revenue from the Blackwell platform, which is a little bit earlier than expected. We're going to see more in quarter 4 as it starts to ramp up into further next year as well. Now, the next thing I want to do is kind of look at quarter 3 preview. But like I mentioned, if you have any suggestions of anything I might have missed that was very big in the past 3 months, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to get my earnings semiconductor ebook, make sure to check it out on the pinned comment. There is a coupon code, and there also is an offer for a free ebook as well. So now Nvidia's quarter 3 preview. So revenue estimates are expected to be $33.2 billion based on analyst consensus. This is about 84% year-over-year growth. I think this is insane because this is a company that's still trading at valuations lower than most high growth stocks, and it's expected to grow 84% year-over-year. Data center estimates are expected to be about $29.1 billion, which is up over 100%. Last year was about $14.5 billion. Adjusted gross margins are expected to be 75%, and adjusted earnings per share are expected to be 74%, very similar to that 84% year-over-year growth as revenue as well. Now, guidance estimates is actually expected to be $37.1 billion for quarter 4 revenue, which is a nice bump up there. And quarter 4 adjusted gross margins are expected to drop down to 73.5%. So some people might wonder, Jose, look, we're seeing continued weakness in gross margins right now. And this is not necessarily new news. During their previous earnings call, Nvidia mentioned that both GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins are expected to take a hit because the data center mix continues to shift to new products, and they expect that trend to continue into the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025. So as they are shifting to new product, usually, right, you have you are building that product and no sales of the product because it's ramping up and you're spending all this money on production, that margins tend to be low during that quarter. And then the quarter after that, quarter 4, we should see ramp up continue to grow and very similar. So growth margin decline is nothing crazy. I mean, this is a semiconductor slash software company, so adjusted gross margins of over 70% is still insane. Now, they did mention total revenue they expect would be roughly $32.5 billion. That's exactly what, close to what the revenue estimates are from analysts. So I do believe Nvidia will both be in earnings per share and in revenue. Now, how will the stock act? That was the magic question. How will the stock act after earnings? To be honest, I'm not sure. And in the short term, I could say that I could care less, because either way is a win-win scenario. If the stock drops for some unknown reason, and if it drops to levels I would find attractive, I would purchase more Nvidia shares. And if it drops down to those levels, I'll definitely do videos. If it goes up, great news, because Nvidia is my biggest position in my overall portfolio. Holding more than a quarter of my portfolio is on Nvidia itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.